meeting. Let's call this meeting to order at 6 o'clock. Pam, can we get a roll call? Oh, 2. Well, should I look at my phone? 6:01.
Here.
Bernie Brower.
Here.
Herschel Ross. Greg Stevens.
Here.
Mark Hill.
Here.
Rob Levitt. Jackie Whitson.
Here. Thanks, Pam. First of all, we want to thank Grassroots for broadcasting our meetings live and also for rebroadcasting them at grassrootstv.org. You just need to search for Basalt. Our meetings will be shown there and linked to our website at www.basalt.net under Agendas and Minutes. We want to let you know that item 6B has been removed from this agenda and rescheduled to July 14th. And also to remind everybody, hi Michael, that tomorrow morning, every Wednesday morning following the meeting, we have Coffee with the Mayor at Saxy's. Tomorrow morning, I have invited, and I don't know if she can come, but Kathy Chandler-Henry, who is the Eagle County Commissioner and a wonderful person at that. So 8 o'clock at Saxy's tomorrow. If you have nothing to do, or if you're just interested, come on over and I'll buy you coffee. Okay.
I'd like to make a councilor comment, although it's not really on the agenda.
It doesn't look like it is, does it? Go ahead.
I just want to let council know that I attended the P&Z meeting where we had a presentation from John Cottle and others to try and, they've been retained to try and flesh out and visualize some of the different options for developing the CDC parcel, and they handed this graphic out, which is quite useful, and so I asked Susan to pass it out to everybody. Just summarizing the meeting very briefly, the fourth option did not get any real play or airtime at all by people. It was well attended. For P&Z meeting, it was an overflow crowd. But everybody focused on 3C and 3E. Some people were fine with it as is. Other people were not at all fine with it. I would say the majority of comments was that it was just too much mass and it needed to be broken up with some more pedestrian connections. People didn't seem to have a huge problem with the third setback story. So.
Thanks, Bernie. Since we're at it, anybody else? Any other council comments? Okay, thank you. First item is the consent agenda. One of the things we would like to pull off of that consent agenda is the Public Arts Commission appointment of members to the PAC selection committee recommendation. So I would like to ask if we could get approval of the consent agenda with items 3A, B, and D, and pulling 3C off.
Motion to approve consent agenda.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, so with regard to item 3C, Mr. Scanlon, would you like to introduce this? Since
Sure. If you go back a year, we started talking, and really it was an outgrowth of all of the out-of-town planning. We saw that there was a prevalent theme around arts, and arts as it related to the redevelopment of the downtown area. And then we started a survey in which we actually asked the question about how important do you think this is in terms of art and the redevelopment of downtown. And so from those surveys and from the comments of the community, we started to formulate the idea that we needed to at least pursue the idea of a public arts commission. And we used our summer intern, Hannah Condon, who's in the audience tonight, to work on that in terms of researching public arts commissions throughout the United States. So about a year ago, we started that work. So tonight, there's a recommendation that we appoint members to the Public Arts Commission. You've received, I'm sure, phone calls and emails and personal visits related to the selection committee. And the first thing that I would say is an apology to the Wiley and to Cobb boards, because I think there was this feeling that based on how that ordinance was constructed, the concern was that we would get too much membership from those two groups on it, so we limited the number But I don't think there were any of us at the time when we constructed the ordinance that thought that no one from either Takah or the Wiley would be appointed. I think there was this underlying theme, which is that the Wiley and Takah were excluded because of the fact that they were their own boards. And in looking at the people that were selected and looking at the criterion that were in Exhibit A, in terms of all the different groups we wanted to try to make sure got included, I don't think that was intentionally done. I think it was unintentional. I think the good news is that there are 2 seats that are still open. There were only 7 recommended members that came from the selection committee, so there's 2 seats that are available if the council so desired. But at the same time, I think it's important to hear what their concerns are, because I think there's a number of people that had concerns about sort of the process and what they thought maybe we overlooked in it or should have included. But I don't think there was any malice. I think it just turned out this way. It's unfortunate that it turned out this way, and I apologize on behalf of the town if there were hurt feelings, because I think that's an important thing to do, because that's not what we were trying to do. We were trying to establish a public arts commission.
Thank you, Mr. Scanlon.
So, since this item has moved to a regular agenda item, we would be open to taking some public comment regarding the process and anything else you want to talk about with regard to the Public Arts Commission appointments. Is there anybody? Yes, sir.
My name is Jay Magidson. I'm the board president of Wiley. And right now we have a exhibition. Miranda, she's a Hispanic student at Wingford School in Carbondale. And she has a one-woman show up right now. Carbondale didn't do it. She can't afford the paper that she painted. She's so poor. The Wiley has the exhibit. Carbondale didn't do it. Linwood didn't do it. Aspen didn't do it. Basalt. And we're very proud of providing it. And the Wiley's a public arts group. You have a public arts commission. Shouldn't we be part of that? It just seems logical. So if somebody says, asks about the public commission, and a public arts group is not on there, well, that's a question that outsiders might have. So that's why we'd like to be part of it. We feel that we should. And Takah, I can't speak for them, but Takah is the Willits Arts Group, and I think for the same reason. And so I hope you'll have us included. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else? Okay, well, I would ask council if they have comments and about this process or about the appointment of an additional 2 people, one from Willits and one from Wiley, to fill up the panel.
Yeah, I mean, I think, although it was unintentional, I think it was an oversight not to include the expertise that has been gained through proven experience in Basalt in promoting and doing the arts. That was unfortunate, and I don't think it was at all intended, but I think we should remedy that. I would make a suggestion that we have 2 members. I really think the Wiley should have more representation than just 1 member, and that might be by adding an alternate from the Wiley. And in my experience, having served as an alternate on the Planning Commission, most often you do get to participate. So I would like to see more than 1 Wiley member on this commission.
Is the committee set up to have alternates, or?
It's currently not, but we can amend the ordinance to allow it.
Okay. Anybody else?
I agree with Bernie.
And is there, could we get a couple of proposed names from Takah and Wiley as to who they would like to have on the committee? Sure. Jay.
How soon would you like it?
Right now?
No, we can do that.
Don't you want the names on the,
Well,
if
we
he has
could-
somebody?
We could put it on consent. We could do a consent later.
Okay, Okay, staff says if you get with them, we'll put it back on the next agenda as consent in the same.
Just the additions and go ahead.
Right.
with it.
Okay, so we're gonna go ahead with the ones that are on here and add the additional on the next consent agenda, if you can get with staff and give them names. I figured you probably had names, it wouldn't be that difficult, but, okay, we'll put that.
I can give you the names right now if you want to.
I think they wanna, get this formalized, because right now it just has the current ones on here, so, could we get a motion to appoint the folks that have been submitted to us?
Can you read their names?
Their names are Lynn Mace, Nancy Lovendahl, Nicole Levesque, Missy Hagan, Lauren Wilder, Julia Novi, and Fiona Bergeron. Might have messed that up some.
Can I ask them their opinion if someone's here that's name was just read? If the process did in fact end up with a missing link somewhere, and is this a good way to fix it? I mean, I'd just like to hear from the people that are going to be appointed that things are fine. I mean, I have art on exhibit in town, so I'm part of the deal, but I'm not overly aggressive about having too much emphasis placed on this with all the other things we have on the table. So I want to make sure that this group isn't fractionalized, but is actually going to be able to work together. And considering all the other priorities that we have, kind of interact with the rest of the goals and objectives we have in the town. Because we're getting a lot of one-off stuff, and I just want to make sure everybody remembers what the big picture is. So I'd like to hear, whoever.
The people were selected by a committee that was chosen by staff or council. So, and there were 20 applications, so I don't know where in that process anything happened in terms of the selection.
As far as the outcome and adding a couple more from these other two nonprofits or 501s, is that fine with your guys? Okay, well, that's all
Were,
I'm asking.
were there any Wiley applications?
I don't know, I didn't have anything to do with that.
She was a selectee.
Okay.
But I'm a selected.
Yes, there were. I think there were 9 or 10.
Oh, okay.
Between the two. To call.
Thank you.
Okay. Did we get a motion?
I will make a motion that we accept and appoint the members per the PAC Hack Selection Committee recommendation,
Is there a second?
With no,
with the addition of 2 members, one from Wiley, one from Willits, and another alternate from the Wiley.
I'll second that.
Okay. Now, those names aren't on here, but we don't care right now. Okay. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Great. Thanks, guys. Thanks for coming in. Okay, our next item is for citizen comments for items that are not on the agenda. Is there anybody who has comments for items? Yes, ma'am.
Hi, my name is Ginger Jansen, and when I was driving down the highway last week, my concern is the spraying that's going on in the town of Basalt. And I'd like to complain about it because I'm a beekeeper and just outside of Basalt, and my bees range for up to 2 to 3 miles. And they were spraying yellow clover, which was in full bloom, as well as thistles. And I'm also an organic landscaper. So I know there's many ways to address the weed issue that's on the invasive and noxious list. And I'd love to work with the town to help come up with some alternatives that they would be open to.
Thank you for your comments. I think our staff has been talking to Eagle County that I think most of the area you're talking about is probably not in the town's jurisdiction, but we have been working with the county over the years, as has Jerome, and I don't know if Mike has any update with regard to... Yeah, Michael.
Hi, Jackie. My name is Michael Thompson, and I live 124 East Silvers Drive here in town. And I have also talked with Ginger and with Jerome about this issue, and
I wonder if we've ever had in the town of Basalt, let's say not in the Eagle County portion of jurisdiction, in the town, do we have a no spray policy or protocol? And if we have had one, is it currently in place or was it in place, and what's the historic data on how well it's performed?
I cannot tell you this. Mike?
So Boyd and I will start working on that tomorrow to find the history of a no spray policy.
Okay.
History of no spray policy.
And then what it is that we currently do today, and then we set out something for the council members related to this in terms of the firm that we use. And I think Jerome knows the person that we use as relates to our properties that are in town that we spray and what we spray.
And I would like to just ask that we be allowed in the future, if we do not have a no spray policy in place now, and we are spraying in the town, I would like to suggest that we work with the town staff, or the town staff that are responsible for weed management, and maybe identify an area that can be a demonstration site for these methods here that were put on a video by the Central Rocky Mountain Permaculture Institute years ago, and to demonstrate that this method actually does work, because I do value a healthy environment, and I do get a little disappointed when I see weeds sprayed rather than manually or otherwise managed. So I would appreciate that if we could.
Thank you, Michael. We love it when citizens come in and say, we want to help, not fix it.
We want to help. We want to.
Not fix it, government. That's love that. So staff can work with you. Yeah.
Well, the one comment I have is there's a bigger issue. It's the people spraying their own lawns and stuff that are much, much different than spraying the right-of-ways and stuff like that. So, you know, that to me is a much bigger issue than, you know, everyone's spraying their lawns for dandelions and other things. And so I think if we ever go through a community thing again, we really, it's not just the town itself, but we got to really just work with everybody to do the demonstration. And if we do the demonstration, we need people to follow through on the demonstration, because what's happened in the past is, you know, it's all nice and good when you chop some weeds in here and there, but if you stop, it becomes a bigger issue. And so that has to be part of this.
Okay, let's let the citizens do their comments, and I think we're going to work with staff. Jerome, did you want to add anything?
No, I'd just like to be involved in, I know that I've been watching no spray policies on Basalt Mountain for 40 years, and they work. And I produced that video with the funding from the Ski Corps, and a lot of other places in Canada, they do no spray. Half of Canada basically does not spray for the kind of weeds that we spray here. So I know it does work, and there's a lot of issues about how toxic these sprays are. The milestone that they're using has been banned in England because it has wiped out many gardens. So, you know, I think we could look deeper into it and come up with some alternatives. And Carbondale's revisiting their no spray policy. They lapsed a little bit, and I think they're going back to reinstituting that. And it would be nice to go back 20 years or 15 years for where we had this conversation here and we did something about it.
Thanks, Jerome.
Thank
Anybody
you.
else? Okie dokie. Our next item is. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't see you.
No problem. I thought that was Tom last time. My name is Rob Holmes, and I'm here representing Roots RX. I'm one of the owners. I submitted a letter on May 29th. Just quickly to review, the state allows for retail cannabis stores to be open 7 days a week from 8 a.m. in the morning until 12 midnight. And I had two requests that I had submitted in this letter, and one was that the request that it could be open on Sundays, and the second request is that we could have extended hours. And the bottom line is we're basically looking to mirror whatever you guys have decided for liquor, if you could make the same for recreational cannabis, that would be great. So I'd like to resubmit the letter and ask, I guess, if council would either
Okay.
approve or
I
deny.
know this is the second time you've been in front of us, and normally citizen comments are just comments, but you are asking specifically to be on our agenda with an agenda item, right?
Yes.
We will see how that flies. Is there a motion to add this request to a future agenda?
You don't need a motion.
We could do, okay, we'll just do it.
That's fine. So that I get clarification, am I writing an ordinance?
I don't think at this point,
But that's the only
reason
way.
to bring it forward,
Right.
okay.
Well, you could have a work session to discuss it.
But you need an ordinance to see what you're
Something to look
about.
at.
So a draft
I think I'd like to
ordinance.
see an ordinance
Yes.
at a work session, so there's more time for public input and discussion about
I'd
this.
like to see the state rules.
Yeah.
Anybody else have requests for the agenda item?
Yeah, let's put it on the agenda item, because, yeah, it's, the state rules are, I think we're way below the state rules and our alcohol laws, and we should just make it simpler.
I agree.
Okay. So somebody will be in contact with you for things. Anybody else that I missed? Okay. We need to convene as the liquor license authority.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? All right, so we're going to call the hearing to order. Pam, could you outline the application and the staff findings, please?
Yeah, we have an application from Starbucks down at Willits to put in a beer and wine liquor license at their establishment. Attorney Brian Crockett is here this evening with Mary Hicks, the area representative. So I guess at this point, I would just note for the record that the staff findings, or what council can find, is that all of the restrictions are in place, and the applicant meets all of the restrictions and all of the requirements as set forth in the statutes for having liquor at that establishment, at that location. Comments by investigating agencies are listed on the memo. Eagle County Health has no concerns. Fire Department is fine with the application. Police Department recommends approval of the new beer and wine license. Building Department has no problems, concerns, or comments. And the Planning Department notes that Starbucks has not requested outdoor amplified music, therefore it's not included in the approval. If it is desired, it requires approval by the town planner. During the public hearing this evening, if we have any comments in opposition to the application, we can continue the hearing if necessary.
Thanks. Just to clarify again, this is a request for a new liquor license, Coffee House Holdings LLC, which is actually does business at Starbucks, and it's the Starbucks that's on East Valley Road, which is what it's, right? Okay, so we would just like for you to introduce yourselves, tell us a little bit about the plan, the goal.
Certainly, Mayor. Thank you for your time, City Council, as well. Thank you for your time this evening. We'll just take a few minutes to describe the project, some of our training, and those types of things. Again, Brian Prophet, I am the attorney for Coffee House Holdings Incorporated, doing business here at Starbucks. Coffee House Holdings is a subsidiary of Starbucks Corporation. We are applying for a beer and wine liquor license, so it's just beer and wine. It's not a full liquor license. It would include spirits. As Pam mentioned, Ms. Mary Hicks is with me this evening. She is a district manager. She oversees this location as well as several others. And so at this time, Ms. Hicks, can you describe for us, you refer to this as the evenings program. Can you tell everybody what the concept is behind Starbucks Evenings program and the introduction of beer and wine?
Sure. Mary Hicks, I'm district manager. I oversee this area. Starbucks has always been a establishment in which we like to create a customer connection. We've introduced beer and wine to several locations in Seattle, Washington, California, and Oregon. What we're looking to do is improve an evening's experience to deliver some of our legendary customer service and some of our food items, as well as beer and wine, to existing customers.
Is this really going to open up an additional revenue stream as well as an opportunity for your customers to congregate in the evening?
Yeah, so it's definitely going to introduce a congregation or a connection between customers in our evening hours. As you know, we serve coffee, so this is just going to be another platform to be able to develop some business that way.
Will you continue to serve coffee in the evening as well?
Correct.
Can you describe for us how the ordering process for this will work? Let's say I'm a customer coming into the store. Does it work much like ordering a cup of coffee? Can you tell us how I'll make my order and some of the policies that you have in place for checking ID in it?
Sure, certainly. Everyone's going to be receiving jurisdictional alcohol training. The customer will order at the counter. At that time, we will card all customers, and we will be looking for identification, all existing identification, as well as we'll take their payment at the counter. We'll be pouring their beer and wine for them, and then we will be handing it at another counter with their name.
Tell me a little bit, when you say you're pouring the beer and wine, will this come in a paper cup, or what can we expect? How will we receive our beer and wine if we order it there?
It'll be in a glass, stemware, no to-go-ware at all.
So it'll be easily discernible from a cup of coffee as you look around the cafe?
Correct.
Okay. And now you mentioned that you'd be asking for identification from the person who was ordering. What would happen if, for instance, I came in with my wife who then had a seat out on the patio and I ordered 2 drinks? Do you have a policy in place for that?
Yes, so every alcoholic beverage we serve will need to see an ID for each alcoholic beverage.
So my wife will either need to come in or I'll need to have her ID with me when I make that order?
Correct.
Now, what are your anticipated hours of operation after you implement the evenings program?
Currently, we have no plans to expand in hours of operation. They currently close at 9 p.m.
When will alcohol become available in the afternoon?
After 4 p.m.
And during the alcohol service, will food always be available for your guests?
Yes, food will be available. We're actually expanding our food menu line to include small plate items, including like truffle mac and cheese, meatballs, almost a tapas style.
Now, you had talked a little bit earlier about training, and this will be the last bit of stuff that I covered with Ms.
If she
Dixon.
doesn't confess, I will be so surprised.
What's that? Ms. Hicks, you talked about training a moment ago. Can you tell us what the training program is going to look like for your folks?
Yeah, so each partner will go through an alcohol certification class that's leveraged by state standards, and those will be happening on a weekly cadence, and then upon hiring, they'll all go through the same training.
And lastly, I just have a couple of questions for you. Does your point of sale system play a part in helping your employees know when someone turns 21?
Yeah, so every time that we sell an alcoholic beverage, it will prompt them to check for identification, including birth date that they will need necessarily.
And what might the consequences be of an employee who might violate the liquor code and say serve a minor or maybe an intoxicated person?
It would probably lead to separation.
Termination.
Termination, sorry.
That's everything I have for Ms. Hicks. I hope we covered everything, but by all means, at this time, I would make it available for any questions of council.
The cross-exam, we call it. I have a quick question for you.
Yes.
This, our actual format says to ask for exhibits demonstrating the needs and desires of the adult inhabitants of the neighborhood to have Starbucks serve liquor. But I would also ask you, what is the draw? Why would you go to a well-lit coffee house with no music and no entertainment and no draw?
Yeah, so
What's the deal?
I think that's great. When we created the evenings program, we're typically targeting people that aren't necessarily wanting to go to a bar, a club. I kind of think of the moms that want to meet up, have a nice quiet glass of wine together. That would be our typical demographic.
Okay, I was curious about that.
Yeah.
Okay, do you have any exhibits demonstrating the needs and desires of the adult inhabitants of the neighborhood?
Did Sally get them?
She did not get them to me.
She did not give them to me either. I have just what's in the packet this evening. I apologize.
But
Mayor
there was.
Whitson, I apologize.
I'll run out and grab.
Okay. But you have
Sally
something.
had gone door to door in the neighborhood. It was my understanding. I often will hire a petitioning company to do that, but in this instance, she said, no, not Basalt. Let me take care of it. So let's see if we can find that real quick.
Okay, all right. I guess we should probably wait for this before we go on. Yeah.
Are you gonna implement any local beverages, microbrews?
Yeah.
Okay.
So each area, we're actually targeting as many craft local breweries as we can. And then our wine list is more California, Oregon, and Washington wines, but we will try to implement as many local wines as possible, depending on availability.
Like Grand Junction? I think.
Yeah, Palisade would be great.
Well, I think we're just going to move on and we'll just.
I have a question.
Oh, but, well, can we get through this part and then it'll come back to us? Okay. This is a public hearing, so if there are people in the audience who would like to make a comment in favor or in opposition of this application for a new liquor license at Starbucks, you may do so now. Hearing none. Let's see. At this point, I will let it go to the council, the Liquor Licensing Authority in Bernie.
This might sound like a facetious question, but it's not meant to be. Will people be able to buy this alcohol at your takeout window?
No, they will not be able to purchase alcohol through our drive-through. Solely meant for on-site consumption.
Well, and you kind of said that with the like permanent glasses, you can't take them out.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
You know, on that note, isn't it allowable now to take half a bottle of wine home if you don't finish it? And that's not going to be an option either, correct? Or
At this,
You are correct, the law permits that. They'll be serving by the glass, not by the bottle.
You know, I'm going to assume that Sally really did this, and there is a little pile of stuff.
I will
So
tell you, every town does things a little bit differently, and Sally assured me that that's how Basalt handled it, was
Okay.
the signatures would be collected by her office. I apologize, I saw her a bit early, but she left before the meeting. I just kind of assumed that she had provided that.
she did. So I'm just going to tick off the things that this authority is supposed to take into consideration. The reasonable requirements of the adult inhabitants of the neighborhood, the desires of the adult inhabitants of the neighborhood, the number, type, and availability of liquor outlets located in the neighborhood, findings of the authority which state that no prior licenses have been denied at this location or within 500 feet of this location in the past 2 years. The applicant has or will be entitled to possession of the premises for which the application is made. There are no municipal zoning laws prohibiting the sale of alcohol at the applied for location, and the building is not located within 500 feet of any public or parochial school or the principal campus of any college, university, or seminary. So that's what we're supposed to consider. Pam, did you find the?
There are no petitions. Apparently Sally was under the impression that the applicant was going to Sally was going to set them up. Our department does not set up petitions, so I'm not sure there's been some confusion there. They do meet all other requirements. There is a business right next door that has a beer and wine license. That doesn't indicate that an additional beer and wine license would be acceptable to the neighborhood, but
Tom, can we go ahead on this without actually seeing these documents? I mean,
Are required in 30 days. Well, there's no specific requirement that a petition be submitted in writing or that any particular type of consent or acknowledgement be given by the inhabitants of the neighborhood. I think that you can consider the circumstances that there are other facilities of the same type in the neighborhood that the neighbors have not complained about, and that there was public notice of this hearing, and if nobody shows up to object, I think that's an indication of consent as well. If you want to ask for a petition to be submitted subsequent to the approval as a condition of the approval, I think that would be fine. Or you can postpone the decision, or you can proceed without any reference to it.
I think we're fine to proceed if Pam thinks it's all
We've
right
had,
as well.
we've had other applicants that have not submitted petitions in the past because we have other nearby restaurants.
I'd like to make a,
Just one sec. Did you want to?
I was going to make a motion.
Go ahead.
Okay, you raised your hand.
Madam Mayor, I move that the town council approve the new liquor license for Starbucks on East Valley, 719 East Valley Road,
second.
through Coffee House Holdings LLC.
We have a second. Further discussion? Yes, sir.
Boy, I wish someone would give me a heads up. I don't see the value added here myself. I may be the only one in the room that thinks that way. I'm sure you'll get what you're asking for. I just, I'm looking at a couple things when I see a brand that has been known for its guest and customer service and its product and its food and its, the whole thing, you know, and then I see this expansion of that brand into an area that is, you know, not really familiar for you guys, other than the fact that you have a customer base that you've captured and you have repeat customers. And I think, you know, the purpose for doing this isn't necessarily to bring any more amenity to the area down there, because there's plenty of opportunities to go and have a drink of wine somewhere after work. So I'm kind of ambivalent about it, and I probably will vote no. I think that if you could show us where it works elsewhere, I don't want to be like the lab rat in this situation. And you know, there's a lot of vitality down there now. There's a lot of activity. There's a lot of alcohol available. I just don't get the whole thing. So, sorry.
Okay, anybody else? Okay, I'm not testifying on behalf of the applicant, but my brother lives in Denver. We go to Denver a lot. There's lots of coffee houses that have quiet. I mean, coffee houses generally are not strip clubs, boisterous, boozing places, but a lot of times they have a guitar player, somebody reading poetry. It's very like, compared to any place else you might go. And it did kind of hook me when you said that about the moms having some place that isn't dark and crowded and you don't have to order a steak, you know? I get it. I totally get it. Anyway, so if there's no more discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thanks.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
We appreciate it.
Good luck.
Thanks.
Okay, is there a motion to come out?
Deconvene.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay. We have a little pile of work session items, and it looks like Mark Fuller is our first person to want to come chat with us. How are you, Mark Fuller?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
Good. Is there anything in the packet on this, Mike? No. Right.
I don't think that's a high bar to clear.
You have a tie? Put on? I thought it was like Perry Mason or something.
I had to make fun. I'm sorry. That was so hokey.
It was. I guess that's what it's rated. Corporate.
I know.
Yes.
Corporate. Nothing to do with anything. Until
That might work in
I
LA.
say that joke is wide awake drunk.
We're missing Gary and Mark. If you want to wait a sec.
I'm at your service.
Or not, go ahead.
I'm here today to talk to you about the Roaring Fork Regional Water Efficiency Plan. I was here a number of months ago to kind of give you a midstream report on this. The plan is now complete in final draft form, and the next step to wrapping up this project is getting the 5 participants to sign off basically on the plan. And what I expect to do is to come back to you after I've had this same more or less conversation with all of the participants with a document. It'll either be a resolution or possibly a MOU that acknowledges the fact that the plan is completed in accordance with the original MOU dating back a couple of years that set this process in motion. Getting that resolution approved by all of the participants will allow us to send this final draft to the CWSCB and will allow us to close out the grant that funded the project. So that's kind of where we're at in the process. And before I get started on this, I want to mention a couple of things that this plan isn't. It doesn't include, at this point, anyone other than the 5 participants. That's Aspen, Snowmass, Basalt, Carbondale, and Glenwood Springs. It doesn't include, for instance, local water districts. And the reason for that is that the grant that funded the plan was applicable only to municipal or municipal systems like Snowmass, Water, and Sand. So any work that we did to incorporate the other water suppliers in the valley wouldn't have been reimbursable under the grant. So our intention is to, once this plan is in place and fully approved, to take it to the other water suppliers in the valley, mostly the large water districts, but even going down to the subdivision level if we can, and bringing them into the process to the extent that they are willing to do that. So they've been sort of left out of this first stage, but that doesn't mean that we're going to leave them out at the long-term program. The other point that I want to make is that we're talking about a relatively small amount of water here. As you'll see in one of these slides, municipal and domestic use in the valley amounts to a fairly small percentage of total water use in the valley. So we're not talking about any kind of silver bullet here to solve all of our low stream flow problems or to suddenly create masses of new water through conservation and efficiency. What we can do, though, through this plan is sort of muster the resources of all of the participants to implement some valley-wide programs that hopefully will reach into some other water sectors, including agriculture, which is the big user of water in the valley that we have any kind of control over. So with that, that's kind of an introduction. I'll get into some of the specifics. Water use in the Roaring Fork watershed. These are fairly broad figures. They date from 2010 from the State Engineer's Office. Total measured water produced in the watershed, 527,000 plus acre feet. Of that amount, about 20% leaves the valley in the form of transbasin diversions. Another 7% is used for agriculture, irrigated agriculture. 3% is used by domestic and municipal purposes. So again, we're talking about a relatively small proportion of our total water, but because it is concentrated in the municipalities, it has the opportunity, there's the opportunity through this plan to reach a much higher percentage of the population than the water use. The plan grew out of the Roaring Fork Watershed Plan, which was completed in 2012. And that plan called for more study and more effort toward water efficiency and conservation. So the plan consists of 5 individual plans, including one for the town of Basalt, and for the other participants. And those are customized for local needs and users. And then the regional plan that benefits from, as I say, sharing the resources and unification of conservation efforts. The goal to implement municipal water efficiency programs on a regional scale and to achieve higher and more effective benefits compared to implementing the same programs individually. What we're doing here is kind of a cutting edge program. There really isn't another regional plan anywhere in the state that encompasses an entire watershed. There are a couple of plans that have been approved by the CWCB that are under the regional heading because they incorporate more than one water district, but they're still fairly local. There's one in the Grand Valley, one in the Steamboat area. But there are no plans in the state that encompass an entire watershed. So we're sort of, we don't have a lot of guidelines here. That's kind of the bad news. The good news is that we can really be innovative. We don't have any constraints on how we proceed with this plan. So I think there's a lot of opportunity for some original thinking around water efficiency. Things to be considered. Cost effectiveness, obviously. Guidebook for best practices for water conservation. There are lots of entities, particularly on the Front Range, that have done a lot of work in water conservation. And we think that we can learn a lot from them and possibly translate some of those programs into our valley. There's a University of Michigan study that the Roaring Fork Conservancy oversaw a year or so ago. A team of graduate students came and did a very extensive study of water efficiency plans around the West that may be applicable here, so we can take some guidance from that. The regional plan, as I said, was developed under an MOU between the 5 municipal providers. Each of you contributed $6,000+ toward the match for the CWCB grant. At the same time, we recognize that not everybody is going to be able or willing to participate in all of the recommendations of the plan. The intention of this is not to impose a program or programs on any given provider or supplier of water. We want instead to provide a menu of programs that the providers can choose from and where they can work together, try and multiply the efficacy of those programs through multi-jurisdictional efforts. These are the water efficiency activities that are included in all the individual plans. I won't go through these one by one, but there are a number of programs there. Outdoor water efficiency, for instance, wastewater ordinances, landscape regulations for new construction. These are things that are common to all of the jurisdictions, and I think provide a great sort of entry point for putting together regional plans and programs. Identified potential regional programs: water loss control, technical assistance, regional water efficiency education campaigns, programs to reduce outdoor water use like rain sensors, improved water resources management, that is, for instance, improved water accountability for raw water systems. Every provider in the valley has a different level of sort of technical investment in their water system, and particularly Aspen and Glenwood Springs, as the largest water providers in the valley, have got technical resources that we think can be applied elsewhere in the valley, including Basalt, Carbondale, Snowmass Village. Estimated water savings and costs. We estimate water savings up to 1,220 acre-feet a year at an estimated cost of between $45,000 and $230,000 annually. These are obviously very much ballpark figures, but 1,220 acre-feet of water is a pretty decent amount. implementation and monitoring. We feel as though this program needs some long-term commitment. And to that end, the Root Water and Power Authority Board has sort of acknowledged that, that they're going to be responsible for seeing through some of these implementation and monitoring programs. That may involve adding resources at some point. We're not at a point yet where we're ready to identify what those additional resources might consist of. But one of the things that the Water and Power Authority Board has authorized is the convening of a watershed summit later this year. There'll be an announcement coming out on that within the next couple of weeks to talk about how we can divide responsibility for these programs equitably among all the responsible parties. And we're talking about not just the water providers, but other entities like the River District, the State Engineer's Office, federal and state agencies that operate in the valley. Basically everyone who has some responsibility for water needs to take some responsibility for these programs. There are many challenges that we're going to face. For instance, influencing tourists and second homeowners. They don't come here with the idea of conservation necessarily. There is a challenge with open ditch systems in places like Aspen and Carbondale, where there are very few physical mechanisms in place to reduce the amount of water that those systems use. The geomorphology of the valley makes it difficult to measure how much water you actually save.
And that's a really good word, by the way.
Thank you. One of my favorites. So if you save water, or if you have more water, it's very difficult to tell whether that's through an efficiency program or some quirk in the weather or local geology and hydrology. So we're in the public comment period now. We're in the CWCB review period now. This meeting and whatever you may have to say in response to this plan is part of that process. And then, as I said earlier, the next step will be adoption by all of the local participants, and then obviously implementation. So that's the summary. I'd be happy to answer any questions and take any comments.
Thanks, Mark. Yes, sir.
So how are we going to monitor the success of, if we start to implement this plan?
Well, I think there are lots of ways to do that. One of them is by monitoring participation in various programs. As a for instance, one of the recommendations is that we try and put together a local assessment and reward program for local lodges, so that we can go to a local lodge and say, here are some things that you can do to reduce your water use. And if you do those, you get a plaque to put up on your wall. You can post it in TripAdvisor. You can do this. You can do that. Use it as a marketing tool. If we get participation, say 80% of the lodges in the valley, we're going to be able to translate that into X amount of water that those facilities don't use. Now, whether or not that water ends up as stream flow or in some other way is a different question. But we do have ways through these programs of at least determining how much they penetrate into the community and how much water savings that translates into.
So who's going to go and talk to the lodges? Is it the municipalities going to go to their lodges, or?
No, I don't see this as being something that we would ask the municipalities to do necessarily. That's certainly an option, but it's not something that I envision at this point. I don't have a good answer to that question, but the the idea here is to not make these programs a burden on the participants, that is the 5 participating entities.
You know, one of the things that came out of this that I think is interesting is when we determine how much we charge for water, it's usually based on reaction to, oh my gosh, look at how much water we're using. The last time we did it was rather abrupt and in some ways painful for the people who live here. So we've been talking about, you know, as we need to raise capital for future water system improvements, as we look at land use, we have to figure out a way to pay for that, and instead of being kind of reactionary, we think we can be the municipality and the system, the way it's managed, be more proactive and say, okay, our management plan says we're going to need to replace 15,000 feet of water main around our different pieces of the community, and it's going to cost X amount of money, and the public needs to be informed that the water rate increases are going to go, and our job as elected officials is to budget for that and figure out how we're going to raise the revenue. And I just think with the tools we've been talking about, and that gives us sort of a leg up and another leg to stand on possibly, to be able to market to people, listen, here's what our long range plan looks like, this is what's going to cost, or this is what's going to cost if we initiate some water conservation measures. And you know, maybe there's no guarantee that it works out, but at the end of the day, it's a different approach than going for a bond or tripling the water fee and all of a sudden, boom, we were here when the guy came in and paid his water bill in 3 cents and pennies. It went from $200 a quarter to $650 a quarter, and you know, there wasn't any marketing or any heads up about that. It was like an awakening after a few years of missing the boat, so to speak, and you know, people got nailed, and you know, it did cause an incentive for people to stop watering and reduce their bluegrass and things like that. But that was a long time ago, and since then there's been all kinds of innovative ways to. And I think the one more thing I'll stop at. There are people playing with programs now that can predict what your rate will be based on your consumption and so on, and it's all modeled, and I think that's really kind of an interesting thing. And for Blue Dye Water and Power, and for this to be cutting edge is really, you know, a good thing to be doing in terms of where this whole thing is going to go 10 years from now in the valley. So that's that.
Anybody else?
Mark, thanks. What happens next as far as public hearings or things that we can help with?
Well, I've got dates with...
Judy's mad already about this.
Judy's throwing things.
Uh-huh.
I've got dates with the City of Aspen next week and the City of Glenwood Springs 2 weeks after that. And then after I've had all of those conversations, I'll come back to you guys with this document to be formally approved. That will be worded in such a way so that what you'll be approving essentially is the fact that the plan has been produced in accordance with the original MOU. Once that's in place, we can close out the grant, we can publish the final document, and then we move directly into this program of getting people together to start talking about proactively implementing some of these programs. And then I'll be back in front of you.
Because, I mean, if your goal was to get the community involved, we probably shouldn't put it on a work session item for 15 minutes. We maybe should have.
Well, this is a pro forma step, really,
okay,
at this point. You know, once the document is in final form,
okay,
and we take the draft off, then we're going to go public.
Okay.
And we'll be talking to all of our members about the best way to do that, whether it's in public sessions around the valley or, you know, something larger scale. don't know yet.
We could go to Starbucks for a drink. Okay.
Always a good idea.
The other thing I think we're appreciating is that it's very difficult to negotiate at the next, 7 or 8 levels up from where we are today with, front range users and all the other people that are influencing our resource. And we just need to bring more to the table than Blue Dye Water and Power. We need to bring a regional, effort to the negotiations, and they're getting more complicated and more the priorities shift. They try things. I mean, Mark has done a huge, tremendous effort here to get this away from what Blue Dye was kind of focused on to where I think we're going to go with it. And it's just huge right now. And it's the old story, when you got a lot of it, and nobody wants it, and you don't. There isn't very much, everybody wants more.
Yeah, it's sort of odd to be talking about water conservation when
With the
river's peaking as we speak.
Yeah, well, we didn't just fall off the turnip truck. We've seen it the other way, too. Okay, Mark, thanks, and we'll try to have some better treats when you come back. Would you like a piece of candy? All right.
Thank you very much.
Thanks,
Appreciate
Mark. Okay. We have a couple of more. Are the rest of these all really on?
Yes.
Okay. One thing that, I don't know if all the rest of the presenters are in the room, but we only have about 15 minutes per person because we've got a lot of work session items on here. So we're not going to keep you to that, but kind of, a little bit. And if I might just ask that staff maybe in the future maybe keep this down to 3, because I know a lot of these might want to go at least a half hour, if not longer, and then instead of putting us here for an hour, it's 3 hours.
You can also reprioritize those, so the ones at the bottom are the ones that are easy to take over to the next meeting.
Okay.
And the ones at the top are the most important.
B's gone, right?
Yeah, B's gone.
6B's
B is gone, yeah. Okay. And we also don't want somebody who sat here for 2 hours to have to come back some other day. But anyway, just for reference, we are kind of a little bit tight. So having said that, Chief, I think it's you. Chief, Police Department 5-year work plan 2016 to 2021, discussion of goals with council. We said earlier that the Pickens County Health Services update on public health issues in the Mid-Valley has been postponed to a different day. So,
Good evening.
hi, Greg.
So one of the performance goals for the police department in the upcoming, for the remainder of this year and looking into the future, is developing a work plan for the police department. And what I'm looking for is input from council as to goals, projects, ideas, programs, anything that you're hearing from the community or things that you would like to see implemented that we can be working towards completion. This process will involve your discussion with you, discussion with staff at the town level, employees and their community members, to try and encompass all the thoughts and where the community wants to see the police department going in the next 5 years. And we look out to 2020 and 2021, and it seems like a long ways away, but it's only 5 years. And what can we be doing to improve the police department in that time and working towards goals and making,
Well, can I ask you first before we chime in? What is your vision as the leader of that department, just on the 20,000 feet
Sure.
items?
So we are at a point with the police department where we're full staff again. We have 2 officers in training, and I think our stability of the police, the staff is going to be very good. So what I'm really gearing towards is succession planning and career development and ways to get people within the organization to take on specific roles, responsibilities, and move the organization forward through their expertise rather than me trying to direct all the time. Let staff direct and flatten out the organization so that everyone has a responsibility and we just kind of all work towards the common goals. The common goals is this 5-year work plan and how we accomplish that. Other ideas are we need to figure out a way for diversification within the police department and to find a way to get more females on staff in the police department. We currently don't have any female officers. We have a very good representation of demographics of the community throughout the police department, but we're missing that. And that's a nationwide problem. And working with Colorado Mesa University, the Post Academy, and trying to figure out some ways to do that. So those are a couple of the big ideas and how we start moving those forwards. It's those day-to-day operational ideas to accomplish goals and accomplish programs. You know, there's ideas like neighborhood watch programs throughout all of the community, and we're working towards those. There's ideas of better collaboration with Youth Zone to provide services to all facets of our community, not just the kids, but the families, and how we deal with problems together. So a lot of collaboration with other agencies and working towards those.
And one more question, when you say move the department forward, what would you envision as the perfect place for the police department to be, or the community to be, if the police were the king? How would it all look? What would it all look like in 5 years? Do you know what I mean?
We would have a shared building with town hall, so
Okay.
that we're back together over here,
Okay.
so that it's not an inconvenience for people to come visit us or to do business at town hall. That's something that we're not going to solve with this, but if I was the king for the day, I think we're on a very, or I believe and know we're on a very good path within the police department. We just need to keep developing the people and developing our capacity within the organization to take on the challenges that we face.
Okay, I'm going to let the rest of the council talk, but as I told you before, I hear from the community many times over that the perception is very good of the police department, that there's a lot of trust there, and I think trust is the biggie that you might not have with some other police departments even nearby. So,
Thank you.
yeah, Gary.
Well, and thank you for getting me a whole list of these things beforehand, because I kind of wanted to see what you were thinking before you just had us popping it out there, because you're dealing with it every day. And one of the things you said on there was, working with the school district more. And I know that's been a communication issue between you and the school district, but it's ways to, I would love to see in the 5-year work plan is ways to get more involved in the schools than just having, our community resource officer or a police officer in the schools. It's just working with them on, you wrote about drug and alcohol use, but it's more than that. And I would hope that the police department would work in the next 5 years to really find a way, and then also be frankly honest with council if you're not getting, the communication with the school district. So, you can bring it up a level so we can ask the school district to work better, because traffic is a big issue, and how we deal with that traffic. When Danny's out there directing traffic, it's a completely different deal than if no one's out there directing traffic. And so, but that's just you guys doing it. It's not a good communication plan with the school district. And so I think that's a big one. And then the other one was the bear safety program. I think that's one we really need to work on more. I think, hopefully this year with all the rain, we're going to have more natural habitat for them and acorns and everything else, but you just don't know. And bears have been a huge issue in this neighborhood and also in Willits and stuff. So, really getting out there to the community and educating people on bear safety, bear-proof garbage cans, and not putting the trash out is going to be a big piece of it. And, from council side, I would like to help fund that. So.
Others?
What is your level of cooperation with Eagle, and has our staffing of nighttime levels improved the last few years?
Okay. The level of cooperation with Eagle, I think we work very well together. They have 4 resident deputies. They work 12-hour shifts, so there's usually one on 24 hours a day. We depend upon them, and they depend upon us for backup. The staffing levels, when I came in, did the organizational analysis, hired 2 additional people. We did move to a 24-hour, 7-day-a-week coverage. When we lost 2 people that are back in training now, once we get these 2 out, we'll be back to a 24-hour, 7-day-a-week coverage. Currently, it's until 3 a.m. in the morning on some nights. On others, we go later. But
This is where we rely heavily on Eagle and Pitkin, and they rely heavily upon us, just because we might have a situation that arises that needs a response of 3 officers, and there's an Eagle, a Pitkin, and a Basalt, and that's the 3 officers that are going, so.
Well, since we're in Eagle County, I guess my question is, but we also in Pitkin, are we getting enough staff and support from those 2 counties? Is it at the level that you find desirable, or would you like more?
For their staffing levels?
For their staffing to support us?
I think currently it's appropriate, depending on what is built in the future. We might have some concerns, or I will have some concerns, or I do, as the Mid-Valley area begins to grow. And if one deputy is assigned to that area for 12-hour coverage, how can they handle it? So as it grows, yes, I have concerns, but right now, I believe the staffing is where it needs to be for them.
Okay, thanks.
Well, if I had one, if I were the king of the police department, I guess what I would love to see, and I don't know, given that, we don't have a million police folks out there, I would love to see more people out of their cars, on bikes, or walking a beat, even if it's not a lot of time spent out. I think it's a lot easier to communicate with somebody who's doesn't look so in a car. So that would be my wish. And I know we're very spread out and you have very few people, but just walking a beat through Willits, maybe a hood once in a while, on a bike. And then I know you also need to be able to get to a car, and if you're the only one on duty, to get to an emergency. But we used to have some police out in the street a little bit more, it seems like, and it was nice. Anyway.
The foot patrols are tracked in the weekly update,
Okay.
and I think we
Maybe I'm going to the wrong
can
places.
definitely improve on that. But yeah, I'll look into that, and we can work towards it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Anybody else? Thanks, Greg.
Thank you, Greg.
One last question for you.
Yeah.
The bears. The bears are a big issue, and the data and the research and everything from Parks and Wildlife and the universities is that education campaigns that we've done don't work. It's an enforcement. It's where we sit down and we end up having to write citations. And we'll continue to work through this education. We've been doing a lot of it and going to the doors and talking to the people about their trash cans. But at some point, it might have to roll into an enforcement campaign. So we'll work forward from here on that, but the education definitely. But how all the studies show that writing that ticket is the one that has the greatest impact.
Well, we do emphasize enforcement. I think we need to get that message out in advance.
Definitely.
Yeah, Rick.
But I'm in favor of that.
Rick has his hand up.
Well, I think one of the things that's changing in governance is feedback needs to be accurate, based on data, and firm. You mentioned school resource officers. We sat down with 12 of them from Rifle to Aspen, and it's a real eye-opener. But you know what? A lot of it is kind of below the radar, and it's not brought to the surface. What's coming to the surface now is things in the news where someone throws a 15-year-old girl to the ground. Where'd that? What was the cause of that? But all we're seeing is some of the negativity. I think we need to be a lot more, have a lot more conviction towards these plans. And when Gary mentions communication, it's also, reporting back too. And I think sometimes staff members, people that work for us, that are out on the streets, hesitate to say what they really know and what they really feel. And I feel as a board member that I would like to have more, a little bit more direction to help me make those decisions. I get out on the streets enough to know what's going on most of the time, but I don't hear a lot of the other side of the story. We get a lot of feedback in the public. We get a lot of feedback if you hang out, wherever you are. But sometimes we don't get as much as I'd like to see from the guys that are, providing the human, the protection of the community, the health and safety of the community. And we need more information about what's really going on, and then we can take it to another level with the leadership at the school district, or work closer with Youth Summit, or solve some of these problems. But sometimes we're kind of working in a gray area that we don't really know about. So I'd really like that, information to come through here and be objective, clear, and factual, and have some impact, on what we do. And then it goes out to the community that, hey, this isn't behind the veil. People are starting to understand what the issues really are at 12, 13, 14 years old. So, that's my point of view. And you and I know we've had hours of conversations.
Thanks, Greg.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Greg.
Keep doing whatever it is you're doing. Okay, our next item is work session with TACA.
So, TACA stands for the Arts Center at Willits, and we have a pretty big group that's here to talk about it. We have Julia Marshall, who's the president of TACA, and several of our other board members, Jeff Orsolak, Mark Breslin, Dick Carter, and Michael Lipkin. And I'm not going to go over completely my staff report, but just to say really three things. We're here to get a quick review of the results of the JVA report that kind of came out of the work session we had back in February, and then we're also trying to get council feedback on the TACA's proposal. And once we get set up, I'm sure Julia will go over that. But just so that you know, that the idea is that depending on council feedback, we bring this back to the June council meeting with a pre-development agreement that would kind of outline more about the framework of what the land agreement would be with the town of Basalt. So once everybody maybe is back, I know they have to set up the PowerPoint set up, and once they have their graphics set up, I think that I could turn it over to Julia and she can give a presentation.
Thanks you guys for coming, and I imagine you were sitting out there watching on TV or something, or no? Okay. Anyway, well, what I was telling the last groups as they came through is we had multiple work sessions on tonight, probably too many. So it's a little bit squeezed. So we're asking if the whole item could be within 15-20 minutes, and if you want to hear from us, you might want to make your part less and give our part some. Thanks.
We do want to hear from you.
All right.
Only one's passed.
In addition to the group that's here tonight, we have added Mary Conover to our board. And Mary is a person who has been on the Anderson Ranch Art Center board and very involved in the art. She's an artist herself, so it was really nice that she decided to join us. And then Tamara Tormelin is also not here this evening, but she is the executive director of the Aspen Community Foundation, so is wonderful about shepherding us and thinking in different ways.
And there might be some money there as well. I mean, it is the Aspen Community Foundation.
That's true. One never knows.
Never knows. Never know.
But we come back to, we've made, it seems to me, some progress on what we intended to do and following through on the letter of understanding in 2011. And so we keep going back to this idea of why are we doing this? And the JVA study was so important about just referring back to that culture is a way of knitting a community together, creating relevant experiences that really ties together. And so we meet every Monday night. We are galvanized around this. We're still excited after many hours of consideration. And tonight we just want to go through this PowerPoint that we have put together, touching back again on our mission statement, the two parcels that we have spoken about before, which is the arts parcel and then 2E. Michael is here to talk about how the architectural plans have evolved. Mark will talk a little bit about the programming. We have received our 501c3 status. That was really important in the letter of understanding. We have completed the JVA study. You have that in your package digitally, or you did receive that. And there's some really good information. I read it several times, and each time it's a little bit, the takeaway is a little bit different. And then we'd like to, just work with you, work session, to find, look at the steps that we'd like to continue to take in 2015. So our mission is still to create a multidisciplinary performing arts center at Willits, and to develop a cultural community and strengthen the economic vitality and diversity of the Mid-Valley. One of the things that came out of the study was a kind of assessment on the schools and how the school kids are doing very well in elementary school, in middle school, but high school they're sort of like kind of going down a little bit. And so another part of this is to work with the schools to help increase the desirability of Basalt as a place to raise your family and to educate them, because the arts have so much power in helping kids make decisions and evaluate things, and we want to build on that. We also want to increase the art opportunities for the students, public, tourists, and guests. It feels to me that we often look at it just as the Mid-Valley, and with whole works coming into place, there's a lot of traffic that's going up and down this road, and if we can get just somebody to stop and do something at Basalt, go to shop at Whole Foods and then go over to the performing arts, it's like we can start tying these kind of trips together so that economically then you see a rise in the level of how Basalt itself is doing. Programming is essential. We're really trying to be a performing arts center. We've spoken to the Wiley, and of course some of us are on the Wiley board, some of us are on the TACA board, and we see sort of the Wiley as being the East Campus as visual arts, and the West Campus with Willits and the performing arts, and keeping this lively conversation going that is really tying then the arts in both areas of our town. The program is still to have music, dance, film, comedy. I wish, we could have all of these things immediately. So the where is, Michael is going to talk a little bit about the two parcels that are and where we're located here. But you can see on the screen.
It's pointed out here. This is the so-called arts parcel, usually a civic parcel, and these were established when Willits was finally platted in 2001, but actually were originally laid out on our drawings, I believe, in 1998. So they've had about 20 years of contemplation for some of us about how they develop, but they are certainly the civic heart of Willits. And just to put it a little bit in perspective, the amount of usable land, it looks to us to be comparable to the amount of usable land at Anderson Ranch. So there is a tremendous opportunity, not only for this building, but above and beyond that, to see an arts campus develop over time.
And then, if you could just walk through the conceptual plan of
Sure.
the architecture.
We want it up here or there? Where we want that? Is this better?
That's good.
So, we've had quite a while for all of us to think about it, and our group is Mark, who has programmed events in this valley for well over 20 years, and every venue in this valley has probably visited half the venues across the country where we see performing arts. All of us visit these places regularly. Dick does in New York. We're all taking notes, we're studying these, and learning as much as we possibly can about how this facility will work and work best, but I'm quickly going to tell us that there are probably three major spaces. This is a multi-purpose black box. It will handle roughly 240 people seated, 350 people standing. Over here is a sloped floor theater for lectures and film that will handle 80 to 100 people. In between them is a commercial scale kitchen, and this circulation space is both the lobby for these events, but also can work as a dining room. The other piece out here is a courtyard space, which we see as
very active space. We're hoping that it will be viable for us to sooner or later cover that space, perhaps seasonally, perhaps year-round, but there are no protected outdoor spaces at Willis. You know, as we know in this valley, we have 6 months where outdoor living is a great idea, but standing in the sun or the rain is a hard thing to plan around. So for us to be able to do outdoor events, this is a critical space. But the kitchen will serve all these spaces. There is a section for some offices that will support this, and a kind of non-program project space that we think may be used for community uses, educational uses, and things that are supplemental to what we're doing here. We are looking at an outdoor screen on this face of the building and some seating in here. We see most of the traffic coming in this way, but we are also creating a strong connection across Lewis Lane to the Civic parcel, because hopefully we will see that develop over time. And I've been working on Willis for 27 years, so I have learned to develop a long view on these things. But I certainly know the best thing that ever happened to Aspen is when the Pepke's dedicated land that eventually became the Music Festival, the Physics Institute, and the Aspen Institute. And so this is our time to keep in mind that if we do provide that land for arts and culture and it's dedicated to that, we're just like Buchanan. It may be all of our greatest legacy over time. So we're all pretty excited about that, and maybe that's what I want to be telling you today about the building footprint itself. But this has been a collective effort of gathering data, looking at facilities. Last month I looked at one in Brooklyn and one in Manhattan. They're both very, very successful models that really speak to what we're doing here.
And what's going to happen in those markets?
Well, a lot.
Because that is really what it's about, is what happens in these spaces.
We've been talking for the last 3-4 years about programming, and we've done a lot of research on what we think people like. So we've done a little bit of everything for everybody. We've done 26 film events, 26 lectures, food, farming, cooking lectures, dance, comedy, theater, music, 80 music shows over the season, and special events, maybe a couple of festivals and maybe a couple of private events. And in the second year, we see it making money with our pro forma. So we're pretty excited about it. And the program will be very diverse, a little bit for everybody. There'll be kids programming on Saturdays in the afternoon, and we'll have to do kids programming during the days because people want that. And we're excited about that, and we'll tie in with the schools. And yeah, it's a great, great opportunity for the Valley to do this. I'm very excited about it. Thanks.
What we have tried to achieve, like this is sort of our little timeline about, like, we began in 2001, in 2011 it was really important to start working with the town, then the economy went, and then the economy went, and so now we're back in place, and we've been working again. So this last year we received our 501c3, which was important for us because we could do no fundraising without having that in place. Then the other piece that we had on our list to achieve was having the JVA feasibility study. We've all been telling ourselves sort of the same story, but we kind of needed to have an outside entity look at our plans, look at these ideas, and evaluate them about whether or not this could be successful. And it was a very, very favorable report. The JVA research, this is really the items that were in their conclusions, that the long-term success of for TACA in the town is very, very high. And there is, from their conclusion of interviewing 17 people, talking to different people within the town, they've talked to the Wiley people, they've talked to us, the focus of making Basalt a cultural center just has so many possibilities to it. And that especially with TACA, having both the RETA fund and the land in place, then makes this really seem as if it's achievable. The things that, I had some takeaways on it, and so when you read the report, you might have different ones, but they use the model of Lanesboro, Minnesota, and they talk about, like, when you really do a master planning exercise where you're focusing on bringing the arts into the town planning effort, that's when you really start seeing the success. And like I mentioned before, you know, the East Campus idea and the West Campus ideas, and keeping this discussion lively about how the arts can really help Basalt economically. And helping Basalt economically, when somebody goes to a performance, they say that on average they spend $24.60 above the ticket price. So in the JVA study, they're saying that for the programming that we are anticipating, we would be bringing in about $200,000. You know, when we do our numbers, it could be all the way up to about $800,000. So the other thing about the expenditure of money when you go out to dinner is that it very quickly turns around in your culture. So it goes into the pocket of the waitress, you know, it goes into the restaurant's income. And so it has like a short lifespan. And so people benefit very quickly for that. The other takeaway that I had is that, you know, there's a real social benefit to it. And you know, they mentioned the millenniums and how millenniums are not a generation who is looking so much for material items, but really for shared experiences. And that is what performances are about. You know, if I could have been at the Belmont on Saturday, that would have been wonderful, but we would like to have as exciting events here in Basalt and in Willits. You know, so we are really trying to build a 21st century facility that has entertaining, compelling, and diverse programming. We want to collaborate with local arts organizations. We want to explore both regional connections as well as, you know, when Michael was in New York, he was talking to some people who do films for children. I mean, to be able to reach out to somebody on that level would be, you know, wonderful to be able to bring them to our area. We have to work to secure the funding sources, and, you know, we want to act as an incubator for keeping this idea of the arts as lively as other, you know, conversations in Basalt. And, you know, I know this is a work session, and part of the idea of the work session was that, you know, we are wanting to proceed with updating the letter of understanding. And so, you know, I brought copies. Oh, I need them. Yeah, thank you. We met with Mike and Susan to ask about how one could evolve this letter of understanding. And they suggested that we take it to, or follow the format of the RMI pre-development agreement. And so the items that, you know, you see on this list, we would be asking for. You know, we've completed the, did you want copies of that?
Yes.
Okay.
And I'll just jump in here for a 30-second advertisement. If you remember RMI, Town on Land, 501c3, public purpose. So if you think about Tuckaw, think about that it's Town on Land. It's a 501c3. It sort of leads you to use RMI as the model that you would follow.
So, you know, as a council, you know, this letter of understanding was accepted in 2011. And so the pre-development agreement is really taking these items and trying to formalize them so that we can, in 2015, go ahead with fundraising efforts, and in 2016, really start the construction of a building. We would like to be opening the doors, you know, as soon as possible. So, and Michael said he's been waiting for 27 years, so we don't want to make it 30. So
is there some very questions you need to get from us to move forward?
Well, how do you?
Well, I guess there's like two items. So one is there's the $700,000 that's kind of the set aside for to build, maintain, endow an art center in Willits. And so one of the items of the pre-development agreement we'll talk about is accessing those funds. And then the other second piece has to do with the land piece, because what Tuckaw would like to do is long-term lease the .75 acre Willits parcel and the 2.3 acre civic parcel that Michael pointed out on the map. So those are really kind of the two big pieces of kind of the direction I think that they're looking for, so that we don't have multiple drafts coming to.
Okay, a couple clarifications. The 700K, is that a one-time shot that's sitting there for probably brick and mortar studies, engineering, or is there an ongoing operations money in there?
Really, operations aren't really covered in that fund, but it's a fund that's built up since, when Michael Lipkin had the chart up there when they were talking about establishing the RETA. The 700,000 started building about that time when property was first being sold, and then it will continue to build over time as Willits properties sell. Then it gets split. The portion that has more that the town can pick for other uses, and then this portion that's kind of set aside for a specific.
So is the 700 the already split?
That's the part that's already.
Okay. And on average, how much has been added into this pot over the years per year?
Well, I was explaining as one of the other counselors asked that, and it's really kind of dependent on the amount of land area that's sold in any one
Just
given
the
year.
average.
So there isn't an average. So like last year there was quite
One year was
yeah.
like 11,000, one year was 75,000.
Okay.
So you don't see a consistent, it goes up and down according to the economics.
Okay.
And according to what's kind of built and
Yes.
put into the market. So for this year, we had the medical building, and so 2 floors of that sold, so there was quite a bit of money added this last year.
And what's the story with the land right now? The land itself?
I don't know quite what you're asking.
Well,
The land is
lease it
vacant, it's
from
owned.
who?
We own the land now. And so when they said they want a long-term lease, the lease would be with the town of Basalt.
Okay.
So just like Mike said, it's kind of like RMI, except they're not actually a fee simple transaction.
Because they bought.
Yeah.
Or my body.
Okay, so that's, okay. All right, I just needed to get some of the,
That could be a condition.
okay. Gary?
So this is for 2 parcels. It's not just the arts parcel, but it's also the civic parcel. And the civic parcel was a parcel that was supposed to be civic in nature. Arts is potentially one piece of that. Because one of the things that we've been looking at is looking at all town, school district, or everything on land for daycare, rural housing, and all these things. So I'd be worried about giving up land before that look has been things for all things. I'm totally in favor of this, the arts parcel, but to add on to the civic parcel, I'd really like to see, what other uses could potentially be put on that. Can they be compatible, or are they more of a town priority in other ways? Because what we're noticing is there's a huge limit of land. There's a huge limit of town-owned land, as you guys are trying to do here too. And so, there's a lot of other community needs. I'm all in favor of doing this on definitely a piece of this, but I'd like to make sure that we're looking at every single thing else out there, because there was talk of a daycare, and there's talk of all these other things that we potentially need.
I just want to interject in something. I worked on the Red Brick Art Center and bringing that into existence, and when that discussion about transforming that school into an art and recreation center came about, the other discussion was raising the building and have it become housing. And our objective in doing that building was to house all of the not-for-profits at a rent-controlled price. And that has grown into something that when we had the vote for funding, we only won by 3 votes. And it was contested heavily. And now you can't find somebody who was against that But when you go into the red brick, you find like that is where the not-for-profits are. So sometimes you can't see to your future. So I would just, you know, remember what it is, like cultural and civic is a certain category that really helps a whole group of people. So just making that call.
Michael?
Well, I just want to say a couple of things here. There will always be a housing need, and there will seldom be an opportunity like this for the arts and culture. And it is the most extraordinary thing about Aspen, as somebody who lives in Aspen, is the arts and culture we have there. If we lose this opportunity, I'm not sure we'll have another one like it. I want to say that Willits has Lakeside, which was the affordable housing project that goes back to when Rick was mayor, and it was a sign on the back wall that said public-private partnerships. But in any event, that was an affordable by design project. It's 110 units. A 3-bedroom there today is what sells for about 10% less than a Burlingame 3-bedroom up in Aspen. It's a huge source of our affordable housing in Basalt. Another commitment I was involved in making is finally being realized on Block 7 to do a significant chunk of affordable housing. On the other, so Willits is sort of pulling its weight on affordable housing. I don't want to whine about that, but we also have no civic institution here of any sort whatsoever. And we live in Basalt, we look up Aspen, and there's all the schools are here, a couple of churches, town hall, the library. We need a civic forum down there for the people that live there. And there are also the people that paid for this land. When they bought their places, they bought into this vision. And I realized when they bought it, it was certainly a civic parcel, not an arts parcel. But it's something I think we just all think real hard about dedicating that parcel. We are not so much looking for Takah to be able to control that parcel. It's to keep in people's face the idea that there can be an extraordinary campus down there that is unique and will do far more to define Willits as a community than anything else any of us can do. So,
yeah, it's funny, Julia brought up red brick and yellow brick, because in the context of childcare, I started thinking about that process that you just brought up, where they repurposed those buildings. The yellow brick is a childcare facility. Beautiful playground, and it's walkable to the historical museum, it's walkable to the mall, it's walkable to the art museum, it's walkable to the library. It has those components, and I think that what we've also heard over and over in here is repurposing what we have. And we're talking about with another group that wants to put a performing arts center where Clark's Market is. So there's definitely competing interests for land that we either own or that we can place in the hands of a developer to provide us with the amenities. So, that the connection between East and West Campus is a good idea. But the other thing I think is without the city repurposing those buildings the way they did and moving the entire campus out to Maroon Creek, which has created a significant traffic nightmare in the mornings. That we got some other things to sort through here. I think Gary brought them up. Is what other options are there? Are there other groups that are out there saying, well, we want it here? You mentioned how strong Aspen's culture is and how much it's been built around the Pepke's. It's a different environment up there. It totally is. I mean, this is the Mid-Valley is a blue-collar, working-class community that can hardly afford the price of a movie ticket at some level. So I just want to keep kind of things in perspective. I like the idea. I think we talked about it 27 years ago. But I don't want to lose track of how this all fits together, because with more money in the waitress pocket, does that mean she can afford daycare? I mean, the things have to jive, and it's a real juggling time here in Basalt to try to meet everybody's needs and still prioritize what's most important, like I think Gary was saying. So timeline's interesting, but this group has a lot on its plate, and everybody's trying to get to the finish line at the same time, and it's going to be a tough thing to sort through. And there might be a few toes that step down along the way that you know, it has to be that way. I mean, I don't know how else to say it. You know, we do whatever we can, but things move all the time. And I think, you know, the point of view on the economy, we do have a short window here, I think, before the economy kind of levels off again. Maybe a year and a half to 2 years, but you know, some of the things we're seeing going on are getting pushed. You know, there's the FIS chairlift, or you know, all the other economic stimulus that happens in other parts of the valley that cause us to have a growing economy that comes from outside. And we're trying to create something from inside that competes with that. And it's really hard to do. So anyway, I don't know. You just say it.
Well, I have a thought, and that is, there's two parcels here, and I agree with Gary that the one that's kind of been tagged as Art's parcel, I am not too hesitant to support moving forward on that one myself. And yes, there is another group, and it would be nice if you were all working together, that talks about doing performing arts downtown, but that's in the hands of a private property owner who's not budging and is sees the writing on the wall that the longer that's held, the more it's worth. So I don't see that happening in the near future, but I don't know. I mean, something could happen. But I would like to hear the council's thoughts on the one parcel that's been earmarked, kind of, in my mind, ever since back in the old days, as arts. I'm not willing to make a statement at all on the other parcel, because I agree we have got some things that are of huge priority to us, and they are housing and they are daycare, and the more we approve, which it looks like there's going to be further approvals in the Mid-Valley that are going to create intense pressure for housing and daycare. Maybe not so much housing, it may be there, but daycare for sure. So I would like to hear other thoughts on if I'm just seeing this too simply. Yeah, Bernie.
Yeah, I agree with your concerns. I would be really extremely reluctant to earmark that extra 2.5 acres for any specific use at this time. It's one of our most valuable assets left to the town. And this council, and it may be a future council, needs the freedom to decide, depending on the circumstances and our goals, how to use that land most appropriately. And I really think that 0.75 acres that has been historically earmarked for the arts, still I have full support in providing that. You've given us a pro forma conceptual plan that seems to be a very comprehensive mix of uses that would, as a start, and I'm not saying I would never consider some part of that 2.5 acres, but I would never put in any way constrain it or council decision anytime in the near future for any specific use. I have a number of comments, and they're going to sound somewhat negative, but I want you to be successful, and I think this is a great idea, and I think the arts is important as an identity in Basalt, and I've supported right from the beginning public art, but I would say you have some competing interests, and that is in the visual arts, to have a track record that's very impressive. And one example is the Wiley. They have been doing it. They have a foundation. They have a track record of providing service. Now this JVA report, which I read, this to me is a vision document, not a roadmap. And this is your vision that you somehow need to make real to us as the responsible trustees for the town's assets. I think it's a great vision. They point out many success stories nationally and locally. I'm basically a financial person. My background was in that. I was brought in by the county supervisor to the library as a trustee, and I was appointed treasurer or voted treasurer. And I started there. It was kind of a mess, both the accounting and the finances. And we worked diligently with the help of a number of people. And now we have a completely transparent financial reporting and budgeting. We started out with $1.4 million. The recession hit. We were cut 44%. But we had a plan B, and we had substantial financial reserves. And we weathered the storm, and we probably will. And that's what I would say. Before I would think of entering into an agreement on that parcel, that you need to prove financial sustainability in the immediate years and in the future. As far as the RMI example as a nonprofit foundation, they also have a very long track record of success. They have a huge foundational grants, and they have huge amounts of income in grants and fees that they bring in. I would say we have had some experiences with nonprofits that make us a bit cautious, and I would point out the continuous care community that is proposed near the old Stotts. And here was a fairly well-financed group with $1 million, $1.5 million, and the leader was Marsh, who'd been head of the Aspen Foundation. They put together a very ambitious plan, which I warned them I thought they didn't have the expertise or the marketing down, but they went through with it, and the foundation is basically dissolved. It's disappeared. We have the experience with the CCH Foundation with Mr. Stranahan's backing. Lots of experience. They came up with a plan that they could not fulfill on a timely basis, and the city had to step in with $800,000. It doesn't mean your organization won't be successful or can't be successful, but as trustees of the town, fiduciaries, we have to be very assured that your financial planning is real and doable. The pro formas that I read about in here don't really compare to the financial pro formas that I'm used to reviewing. The city made a decision to give about $800,000 worth of parking to the new hotel. Well, their pro formas they're going to bring in 25 to 30,000 room nights a year, which is going to have a huge trickle effect. And their pro forma is based on experience. They know the product, they know the demand, they know the marketing. But as far as how many people will come to your performances and what they will pay, that to me is a very difficult thing to quantify. And I think clearly the attractiveness of the performance. I would say, I would just agree with your report wholeheartedly at the very end in its conclusions and point you in that direction so that you could work on this and then come back to us for a letter of intent. And on the last page it says determine long-term sustainability. Before that it says emphasize collaboration, and that's very important. And you have collaborators outlined here, but what are they really going to bring to you, and what are you going to bring to them? Are they going to bring any financing to you? That's, to me, the key issue. But it says here, I'm just going to quote for it, this report demonstrates the potential success of TCAW, and work is already underway to create TCAW's long-term financial and business plan. Moving forward, these efforts should concretely examine the financial sustainability of the facility future funding requirements. And I feel based on our recent experience in this town and on just basic financial soundness principles, I would need to see a detailed financial plan that would show me how this looks like a very costly proposition. Whether you would be willing to start much smaller and prove a track record. I certainly am willing to commit town funds. I'm not at all against looking at that $700,000. But for me to commit that level of funding to a brand new nonprofit, I need some evidence that this is likely to succeed and that You may make some pro formas. I suggest you do a worst case. How are you going to manage through the situation where you don't get your participation in your pro formas? What's kind of your bottom line that you can come at us with? So I would encourage you to do the work that the JVA consulting said points you in that direction that you should do, and then come back to us. And I certainly am very open to looking at working out some kind of a lease or lease purchase on the land, and I'm very open to looking at a portion of that $700,000 funding, but I have a great number of financial concerns about the viability of this.
All right. Anybody else?
Can I respond to that a little bit? When it comes to experience, I don't think there's anybody in the valley, period, who has programmed more events than that. We've gone through pro formas for the second year of operations when we believe we're up to speed with 240 nights. We have an average ticket price of $20 for these events. We're very aware of what this local economy can support. We believe that 26 nights of film, 26 lectures a year, 26 food-related demonstrations, weekend music is supportable at numbers, and we have a pro forma to that effect, and we're absolutely happy to share that with you. But I don't think we're being naive about the opportunity. We have talked to every arts organization in Aspen. All of them see a tremendous market down Aspen. In that down valley is not being served. They are all looking for the expansion opportunities to produce events in this facility. I've been involved in every unit, either as a designer, developer, builder, bullets. I think I understand what it costs to build these buildings and what it takes to succeed. And I am extraordinarily risk averse, and that's why I'm still standing and still do this for a past reception. And I absolutely appreciate your concerns, and maybe we can have a little one-on-one meeting with our group, with you, and we certainly love the opportunity to share pick your brain, have your expertise. But I do think we have a lot of answers here. And I don't think we're sort of naive about what we're getting into, and we certainly wouldn't expect the town to allow us to begin construction until a certain number of dollars towards that facility have been reached. So even though that has not been presented to you, and I think your questions and comments are all right on and responsible, I just think we have the answers that I think will go a long way towards making you comfortable, or at least aware that we're not, blindly flying into this, that we think wouldn't it be a nice idea. We've got, an awful lot of experience on this board and a lot of expertise in producing events. It was a founder of the Aspen Art Museum. We know what that turned into. We know what hard work is to get things done. We have been meeting regularly for 4 years, weekly for the last year. We're not casual about this at all. Or do I have any interest in getting involved in something that I don't think will succeed in every respect as well as financially? So if we can do that with you in the next few days, I think that would be a productive meeting, maybe to help you develop some comfort, or for us to develop some realistic concerns we perhaps haven't addressed at the moment. But I kind of think we're there and we're ready. And
so,
if I could just add, that it's also important that the city shows some significant interest in doing this in order for us to tap the people who have already shown interest, but want to see the fact that we all have our feet on the same ground, including you. So if we don't get from the city some sort of significant, yeah, we're really after this and we want to support it, we're going to have a very difficult time with a lot of those kind of donation donors. So your participation is critical.
Kel, let me just step in here a second, okay? This is set up as a work session, so there was probably never any thought, given that we really don't have any packet information from staff, that we were going to say, all in favor, go. But I think, unless I'm wrong, and someone will have to kick me under the table, that I think that from my perspective, I'm hearing that we support the concept of a performing arts center at this location. I for one, would like to see this, you guys work with Mike Scanlon on this, because he is twice the number cruncher of anybody in the world, so he's never going to get us in trouble. and will be able to recognize a road map when it sees one and will tell us that. So I would like to say, I think that this council, and we're probably not going to vote on it, but I think this council is in favor of moving forward. I don't think we're in favor of talking about moving forward on 2E at this point in time. And also, I said earlier, I think it would make your lives a lot better if you were working with the other group. I think it's maybe the schools or whoever's talking about performing arts downtown, if you were all on the same page and working together for this, because I personally think this might be a better place and it might be in my lifetime. That's all good for me. And I think for the community that this happens sooner rather than later. But I think we'd like to see you hook up with staff and bring back something a little bit more cooked on an agenda. Am I wrong?
I
Anybody?
agree with that statement.
All right.
And I also agree that, believe me, I want to see you succeed. And this is a noble and worthy effort, but not every noble, worthy effort with good people with good experience works out. And I just want to be very assured that we've looked at it very thoroughly and reasonably and have some definite enthusiasm to go forward with it, but on a very sound basis.
And if there are counselors on the board that I am not speaking for, I think we need to tell these guys now that we do not want them to go forward on the arts parcel or even bring us a more formalized type application.
So if in the council packet, and there's probably 70 pages, the purpose of this work session for the council is 1, hear results of the JVA report, which they provided. 2, provide initial feedback toward the cost proposal. And it was sort of outlined in a summary in just 2 paragraphs. And then depending on council feedback, staff believes the next step is to bring a pre-development agreement. The nice thing about a pre-development agreement is it takes all of those questions that Bernie has and it puts them into the agreement.
Right.
And it says, elders will review, elders will provide, and it actually starts laying out the steps in the framework. And as it relates to the civic parcel, it's simply, there are 2 town parcels at this time. In the pre-development agreement, we only identify the arts parcel, but I think you always want to keep your mind open to, I'm trying to look at the parking, and is that parked enough if there were multiple events? And so I'm starting to think, well, would parking spill over in that civic parcel, and could that civic parcel handle parking for a couple of things? Maybe a public purpose. For example, daycares typically don't operate at night.
Right.
But you might need more parking at night for an arts or an event that's there. So trying to think about how those parcels work together and how they could complement each other. But I think reserving the right for what that future use is for the civic parcel.
So anybody?
That's my understanding of what that parcel was about when we went through the 6 years of negotiations. So, I agree with what Jackie said, and I agree with what you said, that 0.75, look at it, and the other one, we need to figure out how that serves the greater good.
So,
not the greater good, but the biggest
bang.
bang.
Right. So thank you so much for coming and sharing all this information and your passion and your drive to get this done. And don't worry about us.
Well, thank you for your
Thank you for working on this and bringing it to us. I mean that. I am in no way an expert on development. My thing is corporate venture investment. But I do have basic knowledge on finance. Yeah, sure, I'd be happy to meet with you. I'm in the phone book. Good, we didn't get to see that.
Jim Wilson, I think we're going to cut you loose and bring you back next time.
Thank you.
Um,
How quick is it?
I don't care. So Jim, next time, we're gonna call it a night of work session. It's a hot work session, so can you come back next time?
Absolutely.
I would appreciate that, thank you.
Executive session? Thank you.
Are we gonna go into executive session?
Yes, please.
Okay.
Sure.
Is there a motion to go in executive session, for the motion of determining positions relative to matters that are or may become subject to negotiations in accordance with CRS 24640224E, in a conference with our attorney for the purpose of receiving legal advice on specific legal questions in accordance with CRS 24640224B?
I make a motion that we go into executive session as per outlined by the mayor.
Is there a second?
Sorry.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We're in.